Hi, welcome back to a special post-Santa Barbara election edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Plague Year. I am Jerry Roberts. It is Thursday, November 5th. Ballots are still being counted in the presidential race. Joe Biden is on the brink of victory. We can talk about that another day because we're here to talk about local election stuff with our all-star panel of Santa Barbara journalists, Delaney Smith, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina. Thanks, everybody, for coming with me. I'm still a little punchy, sorry. Okay, so let's start with turnout. So first of all, we had this remarkable turnout, like over 90%, is that right? Biggest in history, is that fair to say? How do we, is that?
Joe Holland is saying it has never been done before. Joe Holland being the county election czar. He was very, very aggressive early on in terms of moving from, sort of a hybrid election model of, mail-in and at the polling place. After March, he encountered a lot of his own poll workers not showing up to work in the March primaries. Why? Because of COVID. And so he started moving early on to make it an all mail-in ballot. And then I think when the worry started to emerge that maybe the Postal Service was trying to sabotage mail-in ballots through the appointment of Mr. LaJoy, that he announced that they were going to put up delivery boxes, 35 of them, I think, 30 or 35 of them throughout the county. Compared to Texas, they only allow one of those boxes per county. So that was kind of a saturation point. So for people who wanted to drop it in, they could hand deliver because they didn't trust the mail. And then beyond that, he announced he was going to increase, he was going to have 35 polling places where people could go do it the old-fashioned way. I talked to him yesterday. I haven't talked to him today. He said we're looking at 215 votes cast.
215,000?
237. So that's
like
really
90, over
91%, 95%, somewhere in that ballpark.
So Joe Holland, not to be confused with Joe Howe, certainly made it convenient for people to vote, but I think there was a lot of interest too. Delaney, do you attribute it mostly to the Santa Barbara Unified School District race, the 92% turnout? Or do you?
I mean, I think that that's a part of it. A lot of people were fired up about that locally, but obviously it was the presidential election that's getting people so much more engaged this year.
And any surprises in the, let's start there. Let's start with the Santa Barbara School Board. Any surprise? Were you surprised by the outcome?
Me? No, I wasn't. I mean, I think the three of you were, but
no.
I was the only one.
Check the last power rankings.
Okay.
Third place.
Oh, but I mean, the independent endorsement is powerful because we saw the same thing in both Goleta Union and in Santa Barbara Unified, that Vicky and Virginia both got the seats.
Virginia Alvarez in Santa Barbara and Vicky Van Yakov in Goleta.
Yeah, and both of them had Max Rorty, the other candidate who didn't make it, and then Jackie Reed. They both had the Democratic endorsement. They were really strong candidates with a large backing behind them. So I really think it was actually the independence endorsement that made that difference.
Yeah, Josh, I won't pull out the video from last week, but were you surprised by were you surprised by Virginia?
I really appreciate that.
By Virginia Alvarez beating Jackie Reed for third place, and it was not a squeaker. I mean, it was a couple thousand votes, right?
Ran a good campaign.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of that?
I mean, most of the Dem Party endorsements were elected, so the Dem Party still, is the most powerful endorsement that you can get in local elections. The second most powerful is the independent, clearly, because the independent probably single-handedly elected Doss Williams with that endorsement. Just want to mention that, Nick. And also,
it always goes back to Doss, doesn't it?
And also, Delaney's 100% right on Virginia Alvarez. That probably made the difference because the Democrats pushed hard for their candidates, and Laura's untouchable, right? She's just got such great name recognition, and she was just on a ballot, so people are really familiar with her. And so she was going to come in first, and then Wendy was always a strong candidate for getting reelected, and the weird thing is Jackie and Wendy are pretty much the same candidate.
They ran the same campaign because they had the same campaign manager.
Yeah, on paper, their voting record is the same. But Jackie got squeezed out because, Virginia was a strong candidate. She raised money and she resonated with people, as we talked about. She was just very likable. Like, people really thought, hey, I like your story. And I like the fact that you are the immigrant story, and you're somebody who's going to deal with people of color very well, which is a focus of the school district, equity. So I think a lot of people just decided that she was the real thing, and although Jackie is a good school board member, we should probably give Virginia a chance. And Virginia was probably the third choice on a lot of people's ballots. So that really helped. People would mix and match. So, people were like, I like Laura and I like Wendy. I'm not sure about the third. I'll go with Virginia. And then people were like, I like Brian and Elrod because they're going to shake it up. But, I kind of like that Virginia too, and so she benefited from being able to be that third choice on a very diverse slate of candidates. So I'm surprised. I
think her specific skill set was part of it. Well,
I agree, Jerry. That's the biggest thing is she comes from actually operating in another school district, and in Santa Barbara Unified too before that. She has worked with school budgets. She's the only one who has any HR experience, which is a biggie. She has that experience that is crucial to being on the school board, I think.
Yeah, and then the fair education, impact education candidates, Elrod McClern and Brian Campbell. Brian.
That surprised me.
I think he was motivated by the criticism in Newsmakers, that really got him going. But you mean it surprised you that Brian finished ahead of Elrod?
Yeah, I expected Brian to be closer to the bottom.
But Brian's run before, and he has a sort of a natural base. Brian Campbell has a natural base within the PTA of Washington School, and he is married to the daughter of the owner of Rubb and Ellis real estate company, and that company has helped out in previous campaigns. So he has sort of a natural.
Well, and they help the schools a lot too.
Yeah, they help the schools a lot. Exactly. Everybody donates to the schools if you work for them. So he has that going for him, whereas Elrod is young. He's a newcomer. He's never run before. He has sort of an eccentric name, hard to remember. And, I think he's going to go places if he wants to, but it's, I wasn't surprised by that.
And the other thing is, I think, Josh, you made this point repeatedly that the conservatives might have been better off just picking one of them. Although if you look at the rankings, it's kind of 1 through 4, the 3 incumbents in Virginia, or the 2 incumbents, Virginia and Jackie. And then there's a big drop off. There's like 10, 12,000 vote drop off before you get to the fair impact education.
Well, it's really easy to overanalyze and overcomplicate why, who, what, when. The truth is the Dems have the party registration advantage and who raised the most money. And Elrod tried, raised a little. Campbell tanked, just did nothing to raise money. And the top 4 money raisers were in the top 4.
But let's not let this independent endorsement issue go quite so easily, Nick. Now Josh is clearly on Team Newshawk, so we don't know what we can't really trust what he says about it. But you did. Vicky and Goleta where Max Rorty, the Democratic candidate, raised a lot of money, 23 grand at least, and Virginia. And then I know, Nick, you want to brag on this Montecito Sanitary District, which everyone was watching closely as well.
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, I think sometimes, you know, with endorsements, it's more the fact that we recognize what's going on more than we influence what's going on. And so I think what we saw was that, you know, that Virginia brought a certain administrative skill set and experience to the table that was impressive. And that, you know, Yakov in Goleta, you know, brought I don't want to say a lifetime, but a significant, you know, engagement. And so I think we just got that and didn't make it necessarily happen. You know, there's newspapers often, you know, they say, well, if it wasn't for us, the sun wouldn't know to come up in the morning. Sometimes we're just there to say, guess what? It's a nice sunset.
That's actually the slogan of Newsmakers. I don't know if you knew that or not, Nick. But.
There we go. But I will say, and again, this may be completely based in ignorance, and but the Goleta Sanitary District, which I know was hot in everybody's.
I ran a 60,000 word piece by Melinda.
Melinda Burns, you know, again, you know, she has made this an issue, and at you know the core of it, as she defines it.
Now, let's not get too deep into the weeds on the sanitary district here. We got to move on, but go ahead. Finish.
Anyway, the top vote, we endorsed the top vote getter. And I have a hunch that we may have moved the needle on his campaign a few points. And if we hadn't endorsed him, it's conceivable he might not have even won a seat at all.
All right. Let's just touch on a couple other things. There was one upset, I think, in the County Board of Education, which no one had heard of before this election. And Michelle DeWard beat Bert Herter in that North County thing, which is kind of interesting. I want to have her on. And then Joe Howell ended up spending only $4 a vote, as I calculated this morning, to get reelected to his.
He claims he is not spending the $50,000. He's claiming that he got $50,000, and he was surprised. He put out an email blast saying, "Hey, you know, give me a hand here," and he was surprised by the avalanche of public support that he got.
All right, and then in the Santa Barbara, in the community college district, there's a Veronica Gallardo is ahead, but I note she's only ahead by 130 votes. So are they still counting votes in that one?
They're still. You know what? That's a good question. It's unclear to me where the votes are coming from. Well, I think all the votes, you know, that were cast on election night have been counted. So this is the mail-in.
But whether they're in there,
where they're going to be coming from.
That district.
So you know, there may be some additional ballots for that district. Are there going to be enough to overturn 130? I kind of doubt it. I think Veronica is going to hold on. You know, Veronica, for people who don't tune into community college board meetings, you know, she's been an incumbent for 2 terms. She's never run against an opponent. And she has sort of emerged as the outspoken, you know, more of a conservative traditionalist. And she was the one on the board who refused to go along with a resolution.
Black Lives
Matter.
Yeah.
And so, but she is an incumbent. She has 2 terms. And, you know, people who work with her, you know, at the campus, you know, speak highly of her. You know, she really works hard and she, you know, does the spade work. So I'm not totally surprised.
Yeah, but we'll keep an eye on that vote just in case. But she was the only candidate, Delaney, on the Impact Ed slate who won. Where does Impact Ed for Education go from here?
That's a good question.
They lost their lawsuit. They kind of got skunked here. Their Pink Panther attempts to influence it with some fancy C complaint. Go ahead.
Can I add something? Delaney, do you have something to say, or can I jump in? Okay, I feel as though they've lost ability in this election, at
Lost
least
what?
among
Ability
some
or
credibility.
credibility?
I believe that fair education has lost a little bit of credibility in this election. And they went so hard, and I know they'll say it's not us, and some members just go for these candidates, but it's not the group. Okay, we're not children. Like, we know how the world works. I think they went so hard with Brian Campbell and Elrod and trying to trap at the last minute that it really made, I think, I'll speak for myself, wonder what are your real motives here, and why are you trying to, play the game this way? And I feel like it was more of trying to hurt the incumbents as opposed to keeping the focus on the education and the issues of the kids. So I don't know if they can sort of repackage and rebrand and try to figure out what the next thing is. But I mean, they basically they went for broke with Brian Campbell, went for broke with Elrod, and they tried to trash the person really going to be the number one winner. And it's just bad strategy. And so they should probably go away for a little while, regroup, and decide how they're going to play ball with the new school board.
Will you agree with that, Delaney?
Yeah, 100%. They definitely lost credibility, like Josh said. And I don't think that further attacking is going to look good for them or work for them. So I think that they do need to develop a new strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it just as a tactical matter, if you want to go after somebody, why go after the candidate that has the biggest megaphone and a mailing list of, I don't know, 25,000 or something? I mean, right. Jackie Reed all along was the most vulnerable candidate there. And if it was an electoral play, if you were trying to get your guy in there, why not? It made more sense to do that. Nick, you sort of lumped them in your piece on the rejection of Trumpism in Santa Barbara County. What's your thinking on that? I mean, do you think they are Trump guys? I mean, certainly, we see some of them, Carolyn in Goleta, but do you think that's a
Carolyn in Goleta? Elrod was seen in the car caravan of Trump supporters, about 300 of them going down State Street and then up along the waterfront on Saturday. And, it's definitely, they're more on the conservative Republican side of the equation politically. And I think to the extent to which any candidates, whether they embraced Trump or had Trump foist upon them, I think they suffered for the most part. I mean, Veronica, at the City College Board being the survivor. But yeah. I don't think, it's like Charles Cole, the 22-year-old kid who ran for state assembly, was the top vote getter in the primary. But, he's clearly the stalking horse of Santa Barbara's sort of scrambled eggs right wing, trying to figure out who they are. And he's very Trumpian. He got demolished, and he got demolished by a guy in Santa Barbara County who doesn't even live in Santa Barbara County. People in Santa Barbara County don't know.
Steve Bennett, our new assemblyman.
Steve Bennett, who was a Ventura County supervisor. And he got demolished by 70 plus, whereas, other people who are on the losing end of the Democratic juggernaut, it was usually 61, 63% to, 30 something.
Well, and so, Mark McIntyre, I think in Carpinteria.
Mark McIntyre, who was telling people he was going to
dodged a bullet.
He was going to protect Carpinteria from Antifa. I mean, Mark McIntyre is as Trumpian as you could find a character in Santa Barbara. He is very confrontational and, loves to, poke people with the stick.
Provocateur, yeah. And what about Andy Caldwell? Andy, I mean, a lot of this it's just the R by your name. I mean, if you're a Republican, I don't know what Santa Barbara County is plus 12 now, maybe 10 Democrats. So, that's a lot of it. But these cases that you cite, we're beyond.
They all are, but okay, like Andy Caldwell, yes, he's an R, but he also sang from the Trump hymnal. I mean, it was how
Yeah.
how OAC, how Salud was the second coming of AOC, how Salud was a socialist. Now, we would say a lot of stuff about Salud Carbajal, but being a socialist, he's not. He's about as moderate and squishy and practical a Democrat as you're going to find in Santa Barbara County. He's not an ideologue. He's not a flag waver.
All right. I want to not forget the biggest story that's ongoing, of course, which is the plague, the pandemic. And we're still in orange, Delaney?
Oh, we're in red.
We're still in red.
Orange is better than that. And we're not quite going that direction yet.
Because our number of cases per 100,000 is too high. That's why it's not the testing, right? It's
and IV was a big part of that. And Santa Maria too had a smallish, not a magnificent outbreak like it was early on, but there was a Santa Maria popping back up.
All right. And meanwhile,
28 more cases yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah, in that ballpark.
And then, okay. And so everybody's still trying to figure out the back to school thing. Josh, can you enlighten me? I'm confused about what Goleta did and how that differs from what Santa Barbara appears on the brink of doing.
Santa Barbara is going to do a hybrid, but what Goleta said was we're going back to school 5 days a week. We're going to bring everybody back, classes of 19 maximum, and they're working on it and they're going to figure it out. So this is the boldest move by a public school that we've seen on the South Coast. Private schools are doing this. Goleta is going to do it. It was a very weird meeting in that Dr. Lynn Fitzgibbons spoke, and she outlined like very clearly, we're not going to move to the orange anytime soon. And in fact, we might even move to the red it's to the purple, because we're going to have, it's winter and people travel and there's flu and people get sick during this time of year. So keep that in mind as you make your decisions. But now that the election's over, they can do what they want to do, and there's less politics involved. And so they decided they're gonna reopen. There's a lot of pressure from a lot of parents to send kids back to school, and so that's what we're seeing now. Just because they voted to reopen does not mean it's going to happen. We have to find out what's going to happen in a month. But as of now, they're going back from 8 o'clock.
January 11th, they talked.
January 11th, and the first hour is screening, and then school starts, and then there's pickup, and they're staggering it because they can't have full buses. So some kids are going to leave at 1:15, some kids are going to leave at 1:05, 1:35, 2:05. It's going to be quite the interesting.
Yeah, and we note for the record that Susan Epstein, friend of Newsmakers, was against that. She thought that was not the correct way to go. And
Susan Epstein was the only one who said, I like a hybrid plan, because if we get a high case count outbreak, then we're already sort of minimizing the damage.
Which makes sense to me. So, and where's Santa Barbara's having a meeting tonight? Delaney, Thursday,
it's
the 5th?
Today at noon. In English and Spanish, I think it's at 5 or 6 p.m. I will be attending that, but Santa Barbara is doing the hybrid. So you would only be in person 2 days a week. You would be online the other 3 days a week. Wednesday would be half day. There'd be 3 cohorts. Cohorts A and B would be the ones switching off in person, and then cohort C would be fully online all the time. And so a teacher would have to teach a real classroom of kids and a virtual classroom of kids simultaneously. And it's a lot for one person to do. It's definitely going to be tough.
But then you look at this high school, private high school up in Orcutt, St. Joseph's, is it? So they went back, they got one kid sick, and now they're going to shut the school down for 2 weeks. So yeah, it just seems like common sense. You'd want to leave as many options open.
Well, I mean, covering Goleta, it really appeared as though they had a plan to reopen and they were fitting facts into that plan. And so picking and choosing. and they knew they were going to reopen because there's lots of parental pressure to do that, certain types of parental pressure. They moved away from we're just going to stay in school if there's an outbreak. They didn't say that. They said we'll adjust, we'll decide, we'll figure out what works in the moment. But they didn't even talk about anything other than parents want us to reopen and we're going to reopen. Very little talk about the health consequences. So it will be interesting to see what happens in December in terms of whether they're able to readjust. And then they're going to have a new school board member in Vicky Ben-Yakov. So maybe she's got a little bit more of a presence, and she's very connected to people on the ground.
All right. Well, speaking of fitting facts to an argument, Nick, we note that now that the election is over, it's time to move on to the next election. Just real quickly, so we got the Santa Barbara mayor's race now coming up. The incumbent mayor, Kathy Murillo has been out. She's already out campaigning. James Jones, James Joyce, I'm having trouble with names, is mulling it over. Anybody else out there? Hal is back with his Zoom meetings to see what's
back. Hal Cochran, former mayor, former council member, and now spokesperson for Santa Barbara Leadership Group. I don't know. Initially, he was telling me things like, if the council doesn't act, I'm ready to run for mayor, but he's had some health issues, and so I don't know if he's still feeling like that. Deborah Schwartz, planning commissioner, her name has been mentioned. She certainly has, the history and the background. Randy Rouse, former council member, again, he was sort of the moderate, most conservative member on the council when he was there. Maybe he'd want to come back. I never really put much stock in that. We'll see. I mean,
yeah, and of course, the dynamic is if a whole bunch of people run, that strengthens, I think, Kathy's position. I
think Kathy is, unless somebody gets Kathy a job that pays her a decent amount running a nonprofit or something like that, I think she's probably going to run. She
is running. She's already running.
I know, but she will. I mean, if she was to be induced to step out. But the fact is, people underestimate Kathy. I would put you in that class in terms of the toughness of her resolve and how hard she's going to work. She may not be the mayor that people want to see on the dais, but as a campaigner, she is not to be underestimated.
I do not underestimate her as a campaigner. I underestimate her as a public policy leader.
Yeah, and
I don't underestimate her.
I think she's going to fight really hard, and she's going to want it more. And she's going to have the Democratic Party support.
All right. All right. Real quickly, Josh, last thoughts. Who you got on a podcast?
Well, we haven't talked yet about my incredible podcast with Nick Welsh, who reveals all and talks about how Mrs. Powell changed his life. And we are the recipient of Nick Welsh's artistic and writing brilliance, all because of Mrs. Powell.
You heard it here first on Newsmakers. 90 minutes of Josh talking to Nick. How can you pass that up? And it's only free.
You should hear the original. It's like 3 hours.
Delaney, now that you don't have to do any more Q&As with candidates, what's your next project?
I'm gonna write a cover about the hybrid reopening plan and what that truly actually means, talking to teachers on and off the record about how they actually feel about it and what their real fears are.
All right, we'll look for that. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks. I know that Thursday of election week is about the only worse day than Wednesday of election week, but I appreciate you taking the time and coming in to talk with us. And we'll be back when we can talk about some stuff other than elections, but
would that be nice?
We'll keep an eye on that mayor's race though.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks. See you next time.
All right. Next time.